These are devotions for people at a social distance. I've been thinking about the law and the use of the law. We are reaching a bit of a tipping point in terms of using the law and regulating people's behavior in this pandemic time. There's been a gradual change of direction in terms of having people wear masks out in public. And so, a while ago, they started to say, okay, our original thoughts were wrong. People should be wearing masks. It was encouraged, it was mandated, and we're now getting to the point where it's actually becoming a legal obligation. And so the law is starting to be used to enforce the wearing of masks in public. And this is a development I think is necessary, that I don't have a problem with, but I'm just saying it's making me think about a number of things. What is the purpose and the use of the law? This is something that the Apostle Paul spends a lot of time talking about, especially in his letter to the Romans. Romans 7, starting at verse 7. What should we say? That the law is sin? By no means. Yet if it had not been for the law, I would have not have known sin. I would not have known what it is to covet if the law had not said, you shall not covet. But sin, seizing an opportunity in the commandment, produced in me all kinds of covetousness. Apart from the law, sin lies dead. So what he's saying here is that the law does have a role. Why do we impose the law when we want to affect people's behavior? Law is a tool that can be used to shape people's behavior, but law also brings with it certain risks and certain potentialities. And so when the law is introduced, we see resistance to the law. You're not going to make me do or behave in a certain way. And of course, we do see that reaction, and we will see this reaction to laws about wearing masks. But what is the purpose? Is the purpose to force people's behavior? Is the purpose to the law in and of itself? Is it to maintain the law? Is it to generate the fines? No, the law is not an end in itself. The point of imposing law upon people is, as Paul puts it, to define what we're dealing with. If I were not for the law, I would not have known sin. The law makes it clear to people, this is where the line is. This is what is acceptable behavior, and this is what isn't. But that is not the end in itself. The end in itself is to get to the place where we get beyond conforming to the law. We get beyond the need to impose and punish people to something better. I once was alive apart from the law, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died, and the very commandment that promised life proved to be death for me. For sin, seizing an opportunity in the commandment, deceived me, and through it killed me. So that resistance and that destruction can be a result of imposing behavior on people. But that is because the law is not an end in itself. The goal here, my friends, is to think beyond imposition, forcing people to behave in certain ways, helping them to understand what lies behind the law. That this is about how we as a community in a time of danger, in a time of pandemic, can live better together. Wearing a mask is not about simply obeying the law. It is about learning, and the law makes this clear and helps us to understand this better, but it is learning to think about how our behavior impacts others. I just want to say, I hope that we don't just get stuck and bogged down on the law and we start debating resistance to the law and things like that. I hope we get beyond it and see that at a time of particular danger, there are ways that we can live to help and take care of one another. And that is why I'm going to wear a mask when I'm out in public and in closed places, because I want to care for others. And I hope we can get there. But the law is a temporary step. The goal, and this is obviously central to Paul's message about law, the goal is getting beyond the law to grace. And grace is all about how we treat one another. And that, for me, is what the mask is supposed to represent. Gracious God, as we begin to see laws imposed on people's behavior, and as we begin to see resistance to that law, as we deal with these things, make us willing and ready to move on beyond simple obedience, simple imposition and punishment, to find a way of grace and grace-filled living together, which is ultimately what we all need. Amen.